aspect of the sheep CRC is the development of emerging sheep scientists. And Dr. Graham Gardner is here from Murdoch University. He looks after this program. He's in charge. And I know he's very proud to introduce you to 3 of his meat science students and tell you about their current area of research. So let's welcome Graham Gardner, and in turn will introduce his students. Put your hands together for Graham Gardner.
Thanks very much, Ian. Put your hand up if you've heard of the sheep CRC. Oh, fantastic. Look at that response. The whole lot of you. That's excellent. So therefore, you would know that the CRC consists of a team of highly focused scientists, completely switched on about industry issues, capably led by James Rowe, and across the board, as a group, that team are absolute heavy hitters, you know, sitting at an international level and driving strategic research. But they're getting old. I don't know if you've noticed. Well, take James, for example. So James, of course, he looks like he's about 25 and could probably hold up a rugby scrum. But if you take a closer look, there's a couple of grey hairs showing. And in all seriousness, if we go back to a recent stocktake of the industry, ag industry professionals, about 50% of them are within 5 to 10 years of retirement. Half of them. That's quite a scary stat. But not necessarily. Not necessarily. So the sheep industry recognise that, and therefore they have underpinned a heavy investment in the training of postgraduate students. This is the team that are going to be coming through and providing the industry with the next generation of future scientific leaders for this industry, underpinning its profitability. So therefore today I'm very proud to introduce a number of those students, and I'll do that today and also tomorrow. So the first person that's going to come up and present for us is Karma Kelman. Now Karma's based at Murdoch University, and her work's totally focused on aerobicity and redness of meat. And I did notice, Karma, this morning you were particularly fired up watching Alistair Watson's talk from Coles.
Thanks, Graham. I was pretty fired up in reality, because he mentioned that the 2 traits consumers look for when they're purchasing lamb are actually colour or redness and leanness, which sort of underpin my entire project, which comes under the greater banner of aerobicity. And aerobicity is just a measure of how a muscle fibre, how efficient it is at making its energy. So if it's highly efficient, the meat is redder, as you'll see on the left, and it's also got higher levels of iron and zinc, which is really important for the consumer as well. If the muscle fibre is not very efficient, or if it's lowly aerobic, then it's pretty white meat and has low levels of iron and zinc. We already select for leanness using post-weaning fat depth Australian sheep breeding value. Doing that, we also see that we have another effect, that we increase the eye muscle depth.
Hold the mic high.
Sorry, it sounds like it's a 2-for-1 deal. We get a leaner carcass with greater muscling, but research has shown that this muscle has a change in fibre type, or a shift potentially in aerobicity from high to low. So I've looked at an enzyme which is high in high aerobicity and low in low aerobicity, to see if, as I select for a lean lamb, do I drop that enzyme level, potentially pushing myself towards whiter meat, which is lower in the nutrients iron and zinc, which obviously is not a commercially valuable thing to do. No trait is a single entity, so I want high aerobicity, but at low aerobicity you get greater colour stability, which Anna Kalnan will come up and tell you about. So we do have competing forces, but there are ways that we can have our cake and eat it too, and get all the things we want: colour stability, good redness, and good iron and zinc. So if you come see my poster, I'll explain that to you, and I'll also explain why I've intentionally put a pork chop at a Lambex conference.
Thanks very much, Karma. And Karma alluded to a key point. You see, she's going to go straight out the back for lunch. but not eat lunch. She's going to stand next to her poster. In a tick, Karma. You are allowed to hang out for a minute or two. So Karma's going to be standing next to her poster over lunch, and she really wants to speak to everyone here about what's going on in terms of her research. So do head out there. And you know what? Has everyone got hold of their proceedings? I'm sure you've been through this in detail. Turn to page 38 of those proceedings. Have a look. Pick them up. Page 38. Here, I might even do it myself. On page 38, from memory, have a look at this. Oh, there we go. Selection for leanness decreases meat aerobicity by Karma Kelman. So you can actually read all about it here, go straight out the back and look at the poster and get the real cold hard facts scientifically from Karma over lunch. So she'll be waiting for you out the back. As will Kathy Dodd, who is our next speaker. So Kathy Dodd comes from Adelaide University. She's heavily focused on temperament and meat quality. Now, Kathy, am I right in thinking that international markets are starting to really focus on this issue?
You are right, Graham. And we all know that there's been increasing pressure to improve the welfare of our production species. And one potential way to improve the welfare of sheep is to select those animals which are more able to cope with normal handling. So if we can select sheep that are less stressed during handling, they're going to be at a higher level of welfare. And they're probably even going to be easier to handle. And there's also a potential to use these behavioural measures of stress to potentially select for sheep that are going to have a better meat quality. So our hypothesis is that sheep that are more stressed during handling are going to have poorer meat quality. And we can see some evidence for this in cattle, where animals that are really agitated during handling have greater trim due to bruising and tougher meat. So our hypothesis is that sheep that are more stressed will have poorer meat quality. There's been a couple of measures of stress used in research flocks across Australia for the last few years. The first of these is flight speed, which is just the exit speed of a sheep from the weigh crate. And the second is known as agitation. So we put the sheep in a solid plywood box that isolates it visually from all its flockmates, and we measure how much it moves and vocalises. But when we compare those measurements to meat quality, what we find is that there's little to no relationship, and this leads us to question our measures of stress. Are they actually indicating stress in these sheep? And so this is the focus of my research. I aim to produce a set of measurements that we can use to accurately distinguish stress in the sheep, so that we can increase the welfare of our sheep by selecting animals that are more able to cope with stress, and therefore improving the meat quality of our sheep.
Thanks, Kathy. And our third speaker for our lunchtime interval, who will be standing next to her poster as well, is Honor Callanan, who actually comes from Murdoch University in Western Australia. And Honor scares me a bit, you know. She only started 6 weeks ago, and she's already nailed her first analysis, which is sitting on that poster out the back. Now, Honor, she's heavily focused on colour stability in lamb meat, and that's a big player in shelf life. And at the moment, it's costing industry a hell of a lot.
Absolutely. So lamb meat currently only has a shelf life of around 2 to 3 days. This is due to the brown discoloration of the surface of otherwise high quality meat. Obviously consumers don't want to buy brown meat, thus it gets discounted or minced, resulting in great economic losses for the retailer and in turn producers. So we've looked at around 2,000 lambs produced by the CRC Information Nucleus flock. We've taken loin samples and put them in display conditions for 3 days. In doing this, we're trying to figure out what impacts on the rate of browning. So we've got 2 sheep from a recent Catanian kill here. The one on your right is obviously really good red colour after 3 days, versus the sheep on your left, which is quite brown, to the point where consumers wouldn't consider this meat acceptable. So these 2 sheep are, as I said, from the same flock, but both have obviously browned at much different rates. So while we know that it's oxidisation of myoglobin that causes this browning, as yet we don't really know how other meat traits may impact this rate of browning. It's been suggested that fat levels in meat may impact on it, as well as muscle fibre type, as Karma talked about, affecting the muscle aerobicity. So we've hypothesised that by increasing the fat levels in the meat and the proportion of oxidative muscle fibres, or aerobic muscle, that will have a worsened colour stability. In other words, the meat will get browner faster. So ultimately, if we can try and figure out these mechanisms underpinning the change in colour, hopefully we can try and select for more of the sheep on the right that maintain a redder meat for a longer period. Cheers.
Spectacular. So thanks very much to the postgrad students, and like I said, they will be standing down the back over lunch. And you know, I really reckon it's the interface of those students with industry players like yourselves that really sharpens them up. It makes them realise the key issues and just how important those issues actually are to people like yourselves. It underpins the dollar. So get out and actually speak to them, because in doing so, you do these guys some good, as well as inform yourselves. So thanks very much to the postgrads. Good work.